Hey smart people, Toby Salami here. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create an invoice system inside of WordPress. The essence of showing you how to do this, as usual, is not just to show you how to build an invoice system inside of WordPress. I want to show you just how you can make use of the tools I'm going to show you, two major plugins, JetEngine and JetFormBuilder, to build out something that is absolutely spectacular. Something you could come up with on your own and absolutely implement. Every single step I show you here will be absolutely important for you to understand just how I piece these tools together to create this particular scenario. There are a plethora of these scenarios. You only have to think about it, see how I implemented some ideas here, and apply them to your own unique scenarios, okay? So, without further ado, let me show you what I've built so far, and then I'm going to go through every single aspect of it. Right here, I am on my add invoice page, and as you can see, you have an automatically generating invoice number. I'm going to show you just how to do that. You have the ability to select your invoice currency. You can change that from USD to Euro if you want, and as you can see down here, it's also adjusting right here. If you change this back to USD right here, you can come down here, you can see it's also changed to USD, okay? Now you can select your client. Here is a dynamically generated list of all of the clients you already have on your WordPress website. So you can definitely do that. I'm going to show you how. Inside of invoice date, you can select the date. Let's say I want to select the 13th of June 2025. That's okay. Inside of the work type, I have either hourly or service-based. If I say it's hourly, then you see the invoice details here shows me description, hours, unit price, and total. But if I change this from hourly to service-based, you see here when I add new items, it says instead description, quantity, unit price, and total. Instead of hours, it says instead quantity. Let's come to invoice name. We can give this an invoice name of, let's say, web dev invoice. Something like this is absolutely fine. Now I can begin to add each of the line items inside of my invoice. So let me do that. Let's say web development is the first line item for maybe the month of May. And I could say here that the number of hours that was spent was, let's say, 20 hours, right? If the unit price, which is equivalent to the cost per hour of my work, is, let's say, $50, right? Let's say 50. We say 50 multiplied by 20, and it totally gives us $1,000, right? That's okay. We can add a new item. Let's say this one is web development for the month of June. I can say the number of hours spent in the month of June so far, let's say, is 5 hours and at the price of 50. Okay, so that's 5 times 50, 250. You can see it's automatically calculating these values for us. And down here, you can have cost reduction. So far, you can see the invoice subtotal is 1,250, which is 1,000 plus 250. It makes sense. That's 1,250. You also have the invoice total, which is the same 1,250. And why is that? Because of the fact that there are no cost reductions just yet. If we want to add some cost reduction, like let's say we give the client a discount of, let's say, 500 USD. This removes 500 from 1,250, and the total invoice value is 750. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. The moment I click on submit, here is what happens. It automatically refreshes the page by generating a new invoice PDF, a downloadable PDF for us. Here's exactly what we filled in. We have the invoice number, which is right here. We have the date, which we filled right there. I'm going to show you how to display that date. It's not as easy as it appears. You have here my address, which is somewhere in the world. Hello, that's where I am. You have my email address, which is admin@tobysalami.com. You have down here the website name and the phone number. All of these details are fetched all dynamically. Right here at the top, you also have the invoice title. Let's say the name of the company, which is Toby Salami. In this case, I'm an individual. My name is Toby Salami. And if you're new here, hello, my name is Toby Salami, and I release dynamic WordPress development videos every single week. If you enjoy a dynamic WordPress development video such as this, you want to be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you get notified the next time I release a video such as this. If you also appreciate all of the time that I spent trying to make this video available to you, please be sure to hit that like button below to say thank you and leave a comment down below. Okay, let me come back to showing you what was generated here. If you see inside of the invoice, you have the description, the hours, and as you can see, this table automatically understands that we're dealing with hours here and not unit costs for a service-based invoice, right? So we have unit price and we also have the currency that was selected inside of that form. You have all of the items. You have the total item returned here as a subtotal. You have the deductible, which was the discount, which is returned here as 500. 1250 minus 500, that gives a total of 750. And just like this, we're able to generate a very nice invoice. I want to show you every single bit of this. It's a bit complicated. We're going to go through some hoops. You're going to approach areas that feel a little bit too complicated, but don't worry, I'm going to make everything as simple as possible. Okay, let's come back to the main website right here. Let's just load this up and let's come back inside of add invoice, because this is where things get very important. I first want to show you how I set things up in the back end, so let's go there. Let's go inside of plugins and we can take a look at all of the plugins I have used here. Automatic CSS is not necessary for this tutorial. It's just a plugin I made use of to style the bricks builder, which is my page builder of choice right here. But I'm almost not going to go inside of the page builder. Whether you're using Bricks Builder or you're using Elementor or you're using Gutenberg, it really doesn't matter. As long as your page builder supports JetEngine and JetFormBuilder, you're good to go. Those are the two major plugins that are important in ensuring that this tutorial works out very smoothly. You also have the JetFormBuilder PDF attachment, which is just an add-on for JetFormBuilder. You can find it inside of your JetFormBuilder account, and you can use this very easily to generate those invoices. I have Command UI, which I'm just going to be using to navigate around my website. It is not a necessity as it relates to this tutorial, but it does help to speed up your workflow. You're going to see as I go ahead inside of this tutorial. And these Fluent snippets, I use that to add just a simple PHP snippet, which I'm going to show you how to make use of as we go ahead inside of this tutorial. I also added a link to that snippet in the description below. Okay, so let me start from the beginning. I came inside of custom content types by JetEngine, which you can create and absolutely make use of. Of course, I assume you should know how to add a custom content type inside of JetEngine, okay? So this is the content type I first created, which is called Invoice System. Invoice System is what you find right here. And inside of it, I just added a number of fields. For example, I added the field for invoice dates, the invoice description, the invoice number, just everything as you see right here in the front end. You also have the repeater for invoice details hourly, which you can find right here. If you come down here to invoice details, you can see hourly down here. You also have service-based right here. So if it's hourly, you have these four fields: description, hours, unit price, total. If it is service-based, you have description, quantity, unit price, total. Now, if I just edit any of the items inside of the invoice system, let's open invoice system. That's Command UI, by the way, which I'm making use of to just speedily go from place to place without having to find where it is in the menu. All I need to do is double tap Shift and then type in the title of whatever I'm searching for, and it just gives me a link to that place and I go there very quickly. It's pretty simple. It's a way to speed up your workflow. And by the way, if you need the Command UI license in order to speed up your workflow, you can use the link in the description below. You're going to get 10% off. And I'm also going to get a little bit of a commission. So thank you and you're welcome. Back here inside of our invoice system, these are the CCT items that get created every single time we submit the form in the front end, right? And this just makes things very easy so that you can, if you want to, come inside of the invoice. You can see all of the items here. You can see the date, you can see the name and everything else. You can see the invoice details. If it's service-based, you also have, if it's hourly, you can see the items there. But in this case, it's service-based, so that's absolutely why that is selected. You also have all of the items inside of here, and you can modify the invoice, or you can even change the invoice status right here. This way, it's very easy for you to query this in the front end, show this in the table, and then have someone in the front end very easily view the invoice using the generated PDF right here. in the front end if you want to. The generated PDF, once it's generated, it's also going to add that link to that generated PDF right inside of this CCT. Down here, you also take note that this is connected to clients. And as you can see, clients is a different CCT, which I just created, and I have the client's details specified there. For example, if you edit this one client right here, this is a fictional client, by the way, okay? So if you edit this one client right here, you can take note that although this is a CCT, it's also connected to invoices, right? So you have the client and you have the client's email address, the phone number of the client, and you can see the currency in which the client pays, whether it's USD or it's an euro, and you can see all of the invoices associated with this particular client, okay? Now, if you're wondering why do we have a list of empty invoices inside of here, it's all because of the fact that I have deleted quite a number of invoice items inside of the invoice system. So all of these are empty. I can go ahead to disconnect all of this right now if I absolutely want to, but that besides the point, okay? So how did I connect this together? Very easily. I came inside of JetEngine and I came to relations, which you can very easily open up right there. Now, the relation was between the invoice system, which is a CCT. You find it right here. You can come inside of the relation right here. And you find relate clients to invoices. I said that the client details, which you find inside of the CCT for client details, I say that should be related to the invoice system. So one client can have multiple invoices, which I specified with one to many, right? And then I registered control for the parent object and also for the child object. That way you see it here and you also see it inside of here, right? That makes sense? Great. Now, that's it with the relations. Nothing too complicated on that front. We can close this out and this is absolutely fine. Now, this is pretty much about how I set up this CCT in the back here. If you need to just download a file and upload it to your own site, based on these particular templates, which I have taken the time to set up inside of here, you can, if you want to download it, there's a link to that in the description below too, okay? So we have all of this set up. We need to come back first into the basic invoicing details, which is just a simple options page that I created. The only reason for creating this options page right here is because I really needed to have a place to store the latest invoice number. This way, once we create a new invoice item, it fetches this one, the current one, it adds the number 1 to it, and it updates this value right here. So I always have a running value, the latest invoice number, which I can show inside of the form. Does that make sense? Great. This is very simple. You can come inside of JetEngine and create a new options page just like this. What you have inside of the basic invoice details right here is my address, which I'm going to show inside of the PDF, just as I showed you at the beginning of this video. Remember that? You have my address, you have my email, you have my website, and you have my phone number. If I want to add my invoice logo, I can also add it right here, but I manually added that inside of the invoice. You can make it dynamic too, if you so desire, okay? So this is it. This is basically it. What we have inside of pay to profiles, I'm not willing to delve into that right now. I did not even implement that inside of the PDF, so it really doesn't matter, okay? This is what you need, the latest invoice number and these basic details right here. Okay, now we're done with everything as it relates to what we set up in the back end right here. We can refer to this from time to time as I explain to you the build out of the form, but this is basically how things are set up right here. So let's go inside of the JetFormBuilder forms. Let's just enter inside of forms right here. Our aim now is to show just how we built this out. How did we set up the PDF so that it works this way? First, I want to show you how I set up this form. So let's come inside the forms and edit that form. We have this add new invoice system item. I'm also going to add that inside of the zip file that you find in the description below. If you want to pay for it, you can absolutely pay for it. But if you want to get it for free, it will absolutely be for free. I'm going to add a link to all of these files. I'm going to export them and put them inside of a zip file that you can very easily use as a starting point. If you want to get it for free, just add the value 0 there and you'll be able to download it for free. Okay? So let me show you how I built out this form. It looks a bit complicated just looking at it right now, but I assure you it's It's super simple. You're going to wonder why it looks so complicated. It's very, very simple. The first field I have at the top right here is a simple hidden field. And what does it do? It gets the current invoice number. And from where? From the same options page where we have that running value, okay? And why is the manual input value here equal to nothing? As you can see, there is no value inside of here. It's because of the fact that inside of value on the right, you see default value on the right, I have here set up the source from the options page to get the latest invoice number. That's it. It retrieves the latest invoice number from the options page, and that's it. The second field inside of here is a calculated field. You can see right here that what it does is just fetch the current invoice number, which you get from this previous field. It fetches that current invoice number and adds the number 1 to it. So that way we're able to increment the value of the invoice as we generate it. So we generate one invoice, we increment the value right here, and we update it with the incremented value. The second aspect here is the invoice currency. This I got from a glossary, because why do I need a glossary? Because of course, in fact, I'm just going to show you right now. Let's open up JetEngine. What it contains is inside of here, you have the selected glossary of invoice currency. So let's see that glossary. You come inside of glossaries, right inside of JetEngine, you have invoice currency right here. You see, you have two items. You have USD, which the value is the value of USD. You have Euro, which is the value in Euro. And that way, we're able to return those values inside of the form right here and also use it right here in the front end wherever these values are needed, right? So very easily, we can get the invoice currency there through the glossary and specifically the invoice currency glossary item. Then I have the client, which is very easily selectable here. You can see this is a dynamic list of all of my clients, and that is fetched from the CCT. And how did I do that? It's very simple. Down here, you can see you have field options from, and I selected generate dynamically. So this is a select field, a simple select field, and I'm filling the options by generating them dynamically. Dynamically from where? From the list of a JetEngine query. And from what JetEngine query? The JetEngine query with a value, the ID of 6. You know what? Let's go to the query builder. We just want to enter the query builder right here. Let's just open that inside of a new tab. And I'm going to show you this query, which has the ID of 6. You can see it right inside of here. You see, this is the ID of 6 right inside of here. All this query does is just fetch a list of the custom content type query of client details. So it fetches all of the list of the clients. And if you toggle on preview result at the top here, you see that all of the clients are fetched. Each of the clients here, you see the ID of the client, which I need as the value. So I added that here as ID. You can see all of it separated with a pipe character. Okay. So I added the ID. Then I added another pipe character and added the display name, what I need to show in the front end right here. Do I need to show the client name? Then I need to enter inside of here client name. And where do I get that value from? Inside of Query Builder right here, you can see client name. So this returns the equivalent value inside of here. That makes sense? Great. So whenever I add a new client, this invoice form just simply populates the values of all of the clients right inside of here. Okay, great. That's all done. And as you can see, that's pretty much all of what is inside of there. That's the select field down. Now you have two other fields here. You have the invoice date, which is a simple date field. You can see it's right inside of here. Date field. Great. Now you see down here that I selected that this field should be populated as a timestamp. And why is that? Because back here, if we come back inside of here, let's take a look at the CCT for invoice dates. You can see also here, this is save as timestamp. And why? In the front end, I can then manipulate the list of my CCT items based on this date field. I can say, okay, show me all of the invoices between this date and that date. And I'll be able to very easily do that because of the fact that I stored this as timestamp. I could also do some manipulations such as, hey, only show me fields or show me invoices that are unpaid and are between one date to another. So this is the reason why I have timestamp toggled on here. And I also have inside of the form that this is timestamp so that both fields can match. All right. Now, Because of that, it means that whatever value is taken from this date field is not going to be a regular date value. It's going to be a string of numbers that is not understandable to a user. A user can look at the string of numbers and think, what is that? So in order to make sure that this shows as a regular date, I have another hidden field just below it right here. It has the name date as regular date. It's a simple hidden field. And I have here the manual input. The value is nothing, but if you look at the right hand side inside of here, you see the default value is invoice date. And why? Because I'm getting that from inside of here. You can see invoice date right inside of here. I'm getting that into this one. So inside of here, invoice date. You can see there is some quotes at the beginning and the end. And what does that do? It makes sure that whatever a person selects inside of this date before it is converted to timestamp, as at the time of submitting this form, I need to be able to catch that date as a regular date field. And that way, I'm able to use whatever is inside of that date as regular date inside of my invoice PDF, because that's what's going to be returned to me right inside of here. So because I don't want to return any timestamp value inside of there, I need a hidden field that will translate that to a regular date. Does that make sense? Great. Now that's done. Inside of the work type, I can select whether it's hourly or whether it is service-based. It's a simple select field. You can come to manage items. I added them as manual items because we have just 2 items. No need to create a glossary for this, right? It's a simple 2-item field. Also, it's important because I'm going to tell you about how I made use of this calculate field just in a bit. But just so you know, we have 2 items, hourly and service-based inside of here. And that's totally fine. We can click on a bit and close that out. I'm going to come back to that field just in a bit, okay? Now, down here, you also have the invoice name. It's a simple text field. It's as simple as that. Nothing too fancy there. The invoice status, it's a simple select field. Just a list of items you have inside of here on paid. You also have inside of here partly paid and so on. You can add all of the different statuses just as you see in the front end here inside of invoice status. You can add all of them right there. Now the important part. Okay, great. Now you have 2 fields right here. You have one big field you can see inside of it. This is a simple conditional block. Inside of that conditional block, you have a repeater field and you also have 2 other fields here, which are 2 calculated fields. You have exactly the same thing inside of another conditional block right here, which has inside of it a repeater field and 2 other calculated fields. Now the difference between these 2 conditional blocks is the fact that one is for hourly, which you can see here, and one is for service-based, which you can see here, which means that this one just has quantity and unit price, and down here, this one has hours and unit price. It's the same reason why when you select service-based right here, you have invoice details for service-based. If you select hourly, you have invoice details for hourly, right? Now come back here, let me take a look at something else. Inside of the first one, let's just talk about the first conditional block inside of here. You see the conditional block, first of all, has the condition that the field work type, which is above, you remember that, should be equal to service-based. So we're saying if it's equal to service-based, you need to show us this. Then we have another one that says if it is not equal to service-based, which means if it's equal to hourly, then you need to show this other group of fields, okay? Now, let me come back to this other conditional block right here. You can see you have very simple. Let's open the structure here so you can take a look at it and understand it very well. You have inside of this condition block, you have inside of it a repeater field. The repeater field, which you see right here, has inside of it a calculation formula. You would by default not see a calculation formula because this will by default be set to default here. So you wouldn't see this, but you need to come inside of the block for that particular repeater field, come down here to where you have calculate repeater row value and select custom. And this will basically do one thing and one thing alone. It just needs to understand what is the total value for each of the items inside of this repeater. We know that this is a repeater, so you can add as many items as you so desire, right? It's a repeater. That's why it's a repeater, because you can add an unlimited number of items. It is perfect for such invoice because you can add unlimited number of items, line items to such invoices. That's correct? Great. Because we know this, We also know that we need a repeater right here, but we also need a way to be able to specify that each repeater item has a total value gotten as a result of something. In this case, you have quantity multiplied by unit price, which will give us the total value right here, right? The total value right here, as you can see inside of here, when you try to add items, is not really a regular field. It's a calculated field, and a calculated field that cannot be edited. It only shows up as a result of hours multiplied by unit price, for example. Okay, so let's come back here. We're looking at quantity versus unit price right here, which means that we're not looking at hourly, we're looking at service-based. So if you come inside of here, you see quantity, you see unit price, same thing, same principle right there. Now, if you come inside of here, you take note that the quantity, which is the quantity field right here, will be multiplied by the unit price, which is inside of here, to give us what the total for this particular line of that repeater item should be. So that's why we have the calculation formula here saying quantity multiplied by unit price. We're saying for every single line of this repeater item, this is how you get the total price for that item. So the total quantity will be quantity multiplied by unit price. It will then say it knows that when you add up to 2 items, it's going to add the first item with the second. If you have a third item, it's going to add the first to the second to the third based on this same formula. It's going to multiply this and then add it based on the number of items inside of that repeater. Does that make sense? Great. Because we know this, we're pretty much done. Inside of the total here is a simple calculated field that just says quantity multiplied by unit price, just as we have inside of here. So we're multiplying both together to get the total, which is essentially what the subtotal is. It is a total of all totals inside of this repeater. And down here, this is a macro for JetFormBuilder that helps you return the invoice details regular. And where do you get that from? You get that from inside of here. Invoice details regular, you get that right inside of here. So what this does is basically one thing. It says, okay, once every single one of these repeater items has a value, we want to add all of those values together by virtue of this calculation formula. And then this one down here, which is just another calculated field. You can see here, it's a calculated field. It just says, okay, just get whatever is the total from that repeater field by virtue of this. And you have inside of here specifying what the name of that field is. You can see that inside of here. That field key, you have it inside of here. Now, inside of the invoice total amount, it's a bit different because this does not just take into consideration the total here. It has to remove what the total cost reduction is. For example, if you come to the front end here, you could have a deductible of, let's say, 100. Let's say you have a discount here of 100, right? Inside of here, you have maybe web development of, let's say, quantity of 5 at a unit price of 500. Let's say that's 2,500. If the total subtotal inside of here is just everything, all what we have inside of the invoice details right here, which is just one item right now. So 2,500. It's going to then remove what the total discount is of 100 to say, okay, now what we have as the actual total is 2,400 because this is a reduction, right? So it means, therefore, that we need to calculate the total of all of the reductions that we have inside of here and then remove that from this. And it's very simple. What we did here was just say, okay, whatever we have inside of here, which is the invoice subtotal amount, I'm just going to copy that, put that inside of the URL here so that you see the total field key. That's it. Invoice subtotal amount service. That's what we have, exactly what we have inside of here. We should subtract cost reduction. And where's cost reduction? It's right down here. This is cost reduction right inside of here. Cost reduction is just all of the discounts or whatever that's going to be added to that invoice. It's a simple repeater field, again, that just has the calculated formula to say we just need the value of reduction as the calculated formula. So each item inside of this repeater is just simply what the total value of reduction is right here, okay? So every single one of these items is just going to add every one of them and give you the total right here based on this formula. Now, if you come back up here, based on this particular repeater field, which is cost reduction, I'm saying up here that the total amount we have inside of this subtotal right here, we want to subtract from that the cost reduction which we have below. And that's exactly what's going on inside of here. This is the reason why the subtotal has to remove from it whatever the discount is or whatever other deductibles there are and have a total invoice amount. I hope that explanation is not too complicated because that's very essential to building out something like this. Okay? So if we come back up here, we take note that apart from this particular conditional block, we have another conditional block. Let's close this out. We have another conditional block right here. And this one is pretty much a duplicate of the previous one. The only difference is that inside of here, we have hours and we have unit price. Again, we say hours multiplied by unit price will give us the total for each line item, right? And then we have the subtotal amount, which is just going to be the total of what we have inside of here, which is invoice details hourly. We have that right inside of here as a subtotal. Then we have our subtotal, subtracting from it what the same cost reduction is. This cost reduction is used by both of the same situations because whether it's service-based or whether it's hourly, they're all both using the same cost reduction. It could be maybe a discount or whatever that's added here. We have to add the name of the deduction, which is a text field, and the value of that deduction, which is just a simple number field right here. Okay, so that's it. That's basically how we generated this inside of here. Now we have just a few more fields to cover inside of here, not too complicated. We have a unique hash. The entire reason for doing this, I'm just going to tell you, but I needed a situation where when I generate an invoice, the invoice itself, the invoice PDF, the file, does not actually have a discernible name. The name should be a string of indiscernible characters. And this is the reason why I have this unique hash right here. So I have a simple hidden field that has a random string. As you can see, the random string is selected and I can select the string length. In this case, I said it's 21 characters and it should all be numbers. And that's what basically is going to be filled inside of this unique hash field right here in the backend, which is a simple text field. It's also going to be the title of that PDF. You can see it right here inside of here. For the PDF, you see this is the unique hash right here. So that basically is what it is. Nothing too fancy. If you want it to be a discernible name, you can absolutely do that. But I have no particular reason for doing this. I just thought to do something nice. Okay, so let's come back inside of the form right here and talk about these last 2 or 3 fields. We're almost done with how this form was set up. Inside of here, we have a formula that looks complicated. It's absolutely not complicated. Don't be scared by what it looks like right there. What you have here is simply a field that says if you see the work type field that is equal to the value of 0, then you need to return what you have inside of the total amount for the hourly invoice. If it is not equal to 0, then you need to return the amount instead for service if the value of work type is not equal to 0. Let's scroll back up and let me show you what I talked about at the beginning of demonstrating this form to you. Inside of the work type right here, you can see inside of manage items that you have hourly set to the calculated value of 0. You have service-based set to the calculated value of 1. So meaning that once you select hourly, this form knows that the calculated value of work type, the work type calculated value must be equal to 0. And that means we need to return the total subtotal amount, which is hourly, which you find right inside of here. So hourly subtotal right here. So you have this right inside of here. Let's just copy. You have it right inside of here. Subtotal hourly right inside of here. This is where you have it right inside of that. So it says, if this is equal to 0, then return the hourly subtotal. If it is not equal to 0, which is what this question mark does, it says it's either this or, by saying or, this is what the column is right there, and it says this. So if it's not equal to 0, return the service subtotal instead. That's what it is, right? It's just a conditional calculation, okay? You can understand more about this if you just click on this in-depth guide. You can open this in a new tab and take a look at all of the different examples that are shown. It's nothing too fancy, nothing too complicated. Again, I'm going to include a link to this file so you can take a look at it, download it, bring it inside of your own installation, and then understand how each of these things work. I'm going to give you the template. It's entirely for free or for a fee if you so desire. Okay, the same thing is done inside of invoice total. You have here work type. When it's equal to 0, I'm saying get me the total hourly invoice, which you find inside of here. The total amount hourly right here. This is the service total and this one is the hourly total. So I'm saying get this invoice total hourly if the work type is equal to the hourly, which is 0, right? So it's going to give us that. If it is not equal to that, then give me the invoice amount, which is the service invoice amount. You can find that inside of right here, invoice total amount. You can see this is called invoice amount. So instead, I'm saying if that is not equal to 0, then give me invoice amount. Pretty much that's it. Then I have one more field inside of here. This one, if you come inside of block to the right, you see this one is hidden. And what it does is just give me a total of the cost reductions. Cost reductions, where do I get that from? This is a simple calculated field. If you scroll up, you're going to see that this repeater field is called cost reductions. So what I'm doing is just returning that as a hidden field, which is a calculated field, but it's hidden inside of here to get the cost reductions. And that's simply it. If you want to return any form field inside of a calculated field, you can very easily use this right here and just return any of the form field. But the point is that right now I am able to return my cost reduction as a hidden field and be able to use this right inside my invoice. If you come inside of the invoice, that's what I have inside of here. That's exactly where I fetched it to. Now, I'm going to show you how I built out the PDF itself, the template for the PDF, so that every single one of these fields are mapped correctly, the way they're supposed to be mapped. Let me show you that. It's pretty simple. I'm going to come inside of templates. Inside of JetFormBuilder, you come inside of templates. If you're wondering where templates comes from, just in case you don't have that inside of your own JetFormBuilder setup, it's pretty simple. That comes as part of the add-on for PDF generation, which you find inside of the plugins that I showed you at the beginning of this video. So inside of templates here, you create a new template. We can add a new template very easily. Let me edit the template I have already added. Now, when you add a new template, you can select the form on the right-hand side right here. Don't be scared by what you have showing inside of here. Don't worry, I'm going to break every single aspect of this down for you. It's pretty simple, okay? So inside of select form right here, you have this add new invoice system, which is the JetFormBuilder form associated with this particular PDF. You don't have to select it here. But the advantage of selecting that form inside of here is that you now have the option, this option, whenever you click on any field block, any block inside of here, you have the option to select the JetFormBuilder macros. And that is gotten only as a result of having to select the equivalent form. So it just returns a list of all of the form fields and you can begin to return each of them inside of here. Now, let me open the structure panel, show you how I build this thing out. It's pretty simple. First, at the top here, I have 3 columns, a simple column block. You can add, of course, a column block by just simply typing in column right here. When you type in column, you can add a simple 3-column block right there. So I have a 3-column block. Inside of the first column here, I just have a simple heading, which says invoice. I have inside of here a simple image, which is a simple logo of my business right here. Then down here, I have invoice number and invoice date. Now, inside of invoice number, how did I get this? It's pretty simple. I'm getting that from my form. If you come inside of my form right here, you see I have invoice number right here called invoice number. Right inside of here, I can also put invoice number right inside of here. The only difference is that I have a percentage symbol at the beginning and at the end of it. Each field that you need, just select that field, grab the field key right here, and just put a percentage at the front and at the back of that field name, and that's it. Just add a percentage symbol at the beginning and at the end of that field key, and voila, you have the placeholder that's going to fetch that particular value from the form. The same thing applies to the invoice date. Because I don't want to get this particular invoice date right here, this one, which is going to save as timestamp. I don't want to show a random string. Instead, I have this date as regular date, which I explained previously, and I'm going to use that instead. So date as regular date is what I have brought inside of here. You can, as I explained before, just select here and just come inside of here, select date as regular date, or as is the case for the previous one, which is invoice number, I can very easily select invoice number here. And as you can see, it just brings in that macro right there. I left the middle column empty, nothing should be there. And then on the right hand side, the right column right here, I added a simple text, which just shows my name. If you want to add your business name, this is where you add it. And then you have a bunch of items right inside of here. Each of these items are dynamic values, and you can tell by this dynamic content value icon inside of here. If you click on it, you can see where the content is fetched from. You can see this one is custom value gotten from the option value of my address. Do you remember when I showed you the options page? I got my address right there from that options page right inside of there. If you select the second one, you see that inside of there is content, and this gets my email. Down inside of this one gets inside of here the same custom data, which is from options page of my website. And finally, I have the last one here, which gets from the options value of my phone number. And just like that, you have all of the 4 items that are supposed to show right at the top of your invoice. What do I have inside of here as HR? It's just something to signify this line which you see inside of here. In HTML, once you add HR, which you find inside of here, it translates it when you're creating a PDF into a simple line, a line that spans from end to end, okay? So I added a HTML block, a custom HTML block, and just added HR, just like that, okay? And that solves it. Now, these parts right here, these 2 parts right here may look pretty complicated, because you may be wondering, how do you come up with all of this code? Well, I didn't come up with all of this code. It's something that you can generate yourself, and I'm going to show you just how to do that, okay? You need to pay very, very rapt attention, because you need to understand how these things work in order to be able to replicate it in your own situation, okay? So for now, let's just copy what you have right here. Repeater content, invoice details hourly. Let's just copy that. Let's also copy inside of here repeater content. Don't worry right now about what they mean. I'm going to tell you about that in a bit, okay? So first of all, what this is just what generates the simple table you find inside of here. You have it in 2 places here because of the fact that you could either have service-based, which will have inside of it things like quantity, which you can find inside of here. Or you can have things like hours, which you have inside of this order table, hours, which will have hours and the unit price for such hours. I couldn't manage to do both of these scenarios inside of one single table, so I instead created 2 different tables you can find inside of here. You can see this is WP block table, which means that it is a native tool that you can create yourself right inside of here. You don't need to understand how to code HTML to do this. I'm going to show you how to do it. But you notice that you have containing each one is the conditional block. You have conditional block here and conditional block here. So I'm pretty much saying that for the first conditional block right here, you should only show this inside of your PDF if the work type is equal to hourly, which you can find right inside of here. So I'm saying if the work type is equal to hourly, then show this one, which is going to contain the hours, which you can find right inside of here. You don't have to understand the code. Again, just look at what I'm showing you. This is hours right inside of here. You know that this table is for generating things as it relates to hours. When it's hours, then we're making use of this one table. That's why the conditional block right here explicitly states that it should be the work type of hourly, right? The second conditional block says that it should be if the work type is equal to service-based, okay? So we're saying show that if the work type is equal to service-based. And that is very easily discernible from here. You have either hourly or service-based. Great. Now you can come back inside of here. Let's close this out and let me show you how I generated this. We're going to come down to this one in a bit, but first let me show you how I generated this part. You can see the same HR here, which gave us the line at the top, is the same HR here, which gives us the line below, which you can see right here and right here, right? Now, all that's left is to talk about the table inside of here and also this table right inside of here. So let's talk about both of these situations. First, you need to understand that because of the fact that we have a repeater field inside of our form, let's come back to our form. Because of the fact that we have a repeater field right here, we cannot directly access all of these values. We cannot do that. And why can we not directly access all of these values? Because when you create a repeater, how many items should be inside the repeater? What do you think? How many items should be inside? How many should be the maximum number of items? How many should be the minimum? We simply have no answers to these questions. And why is that? Because that's how a repeater was meant to work. A repeater was meant to help you add an unlimited number of items inside of it. So you just keep on clicking on add new, as you can see here, add item and add item and add item. And if I want to click this 500 times, I'm going to have 500 repeater items inside of here. It means, therefore, that this table right inside of our PDF right here needs to also be dynamic. We cannot map things directly as we mapped them when we had, these items right here. We cannot access and begin to map each of the repeater items. You cannot even find it inside of the list inside of here. And why? Because of the fact that each of those repeater items constitutes what is known as an array. An array is just a list of items, right? An unlimited list, a list that you cannot specifically quantify, right? Now, because of that fact, because we know that we have an unlimited number of items, we need a way to break out that repeater items array. We need a way to really break it out and then look inside of the list of items it returns and access those values one by one. And how do we do that? We need to do something that returns those repeater items as though they were listing items inside of the front end or inside of our PDF, as is the case right here. So let me show you how we can do that. We first need to make use of some code that I'm going to add a link for in the description. Don't worry, you're going to find the code. It's created by the official Crocoblock team, so you don't have to be bothered about how legit the code is. It's proven it works, okay? Let's just come to where we have the snippets. Let's open that up. I'm not going to explain to you how every single part of this code handles the repeater. It really doesn't matter. You can just copy and paste and make use of it. But the point is, once you've copied, you've pasted, and you've published the snippets, and the snippet is very much activated by toggling this on right here. You can ensure that it's published. You're good to go. Now, the parts that's important is making use of that inside of your PDF or in the front end. It can also work in the front end if you so desire. But inside of your PDF, let me show you how you can make use of it. Let's just add inside of here a simple, a new block. Let's add a new block right inside of here. The essence of adding a new block here is just to show you very simply how this code right inside of here was generated. It's pretty simple. So let's add a new block. We're going to add a table. Let's just drop that table inside of there. How many columns and how many rows should this table have? We know that it should have 4 columns. And why? Because it's going to have things like the description, it's going to have hours, it's going to have unit price, and it's going to have the total. So we know it's 4 items. Let's leave the row count as 2 and create the table. And we can, if we want to, toggle on the header section. So we can add all of the 4 items right inside of here. We can add description, hours, unit price, total. Now we've added the headings for this particular invoice, but we have each of these items set manually. If we want to, we can begin to add more rows. We can click on this, we can insert a row and begin to add new items. But again, as we mentioned before, we have no way to access each of these line items inside of our repeater. We have no way to access it because, of course, it's inside of an array and we need a way to break out that array, which means that we need to make each of these lines of this table very dynamic. And how can we do that? First of all, let's just remove one of these lines. So one of these rows, let's just remove one of them. Now, instead of unit price at the top, where we definitely want to add the currency for that particular unit price. And where do we get that currency from? Remember that we have the invoice currency set right at the top here, which, by the way, is also set right below. If you come down here, you take note that inside of here, when you come inside of the invoice total actual, you see here that the prefix has the JetFormBuilder field of invoice currency. That's one way I made use of it, which is the reason why in the front end, you also have that showing right inside of here. What I did was just to include invoice currency inside of this. So I'm basically fetching whatever is inside of this field right inside of that field at the bottom. So we have invoice currency right here, and I need to be able to get that invoice currency inside of my template for my PDF. I can get that very simply by putting that inside of this bracket right here. And how do I do that? It's pretty simple. Let's just click out of this and add this in a separate place. Let's say we want to add this here. Let's say we want to add invoice currency. We see it returns as invoice currency. So we can cut that and we can put that inside of here as the unit price for the invoice currency. We expect that to show this way because we have our invoice currency returned inside of here. We also need that returned inside of our total. We can do that too by simply opening and closing the bracket and pasting again invoice currency. So as many times as you want to add that inside of here, it can show as many times as possible. The hard part is having to make these rows dynamic, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So inside of description, let's say description 1. Let's just call it that. Inside of hours, we want to say hours 1. Okay. Inside of unit price, we want to say unit price 1. Okay. Unit price 1. Inside of total, we want to say total what? Okay. Now, pay attention, because this is how you're going to understand just how to make this dynamic. Let's add another item. Let's say this is description 2. Inside of unit price, we're going to call that unit price 2, right? And then inside of total, we have total 2, right? The reason for having to add 2 line items inside of the table right here is just to show you in the code how this is actually rendered. It's pretty simple how it's rendered. If we come inside of here and just selecting that table, just click on these 3 dots and come to edit as HTML. It converts everything we did into HTML, which you can, of course, click on edit visually to return it back to how it should be, right? So let's come back and click on edit as HTML. Great. Now, how are things set up here? This can get very confusing for you, especially if you have no idea how tables are coded inside of HTML. But I'm going to break it down very easily for you, whether or not you're used to editing HTML. You can see right here that this just simply says figure. And what it says here is that this has classes and you have WP block table. You can see this is the table right here. You see it also has a class of has fixed layout. It really doesn't matter what classes are applied to this table. The point is that it is a table. We can break that into the second line. Okay, so that's good. We have table here, and this is where it ends. Table, right here. Almost every single HTML element, such as table, has an opening and closing. And this is the opening, and you can find the closing right here at the very bottom. You can see it right here. You also have the closing for figure right here. The difference between the opening and the closing is just that they have a / right here. You can see it right here. You have figure, which has a /. You have table, which has a / at the end. That's it. That's basically it. Now let's just add another space there so that, you know, it's easier on our eyes. It really doesn't matter how many spaces there are, okay? Now, inside of table head, which is what you see as T head, we can break that down inside of there. Let's find where T head ends. You can see it right inside of here. This is where it ends. So let's also break that into the next line. We can break this into another line too. So we have T head and we have T head closed right inside of here. Absolutely excellent, right? Very excellent. What is inside T head? You can tell very easily inside of here. You have TR right here. You also have TR ending right here. So let's break that into another line. You can see you have TH, which shows description, open and close. You have another one, another TH, which shows hours. And if you remember, description, hours, you then have unit price, which you have inside of here. Right inside of here, you have unit price. Then you have total right inside of here. So you have those 4 columns: description, hours, unit price, total, right? It gets easier, right? It's very easy. It's just jumbled up, and that's the reason why it was looking too complicated, okay? Now, this part is not very dynamic. The only thing that's dynamic about it is where you have the invoice currency, which is going to be fetched. And you also have the invoice currency here too, which is also going to be fetched. Apart from that, it's absolutely fine. Now you have T-body, which is going to return to you all of the line items for your invoice right now, okay? So break T-body down, and you see this is where T-body ends. We're going to break that down too, okay? Now you also have, just as you had inside of T-head, you have TR, which we're going to break down. We find where TR ends, we're going to break that down inside of here. And now you have TD, the script 1, which is the description, the first description. You have hours 1, which is the first hours. You have unit price 1, which is the first unit price. And you have total 1, which is the first total. Then you have where TR ends again. So we can break this down into another line. So it means TR, there are two groups right inside of here. We have TR inside of here, TR start here, TR ends here. Another TR start here, we can break that into a new line, and that TR ends here. So it means each of these TR, what you see as TR inside of here, is actually a line item. Then what you see as the TD inside of here is actually a column. So you have discrete 1, hours 1, unit price 1, total 1. You have discrete 2, hours 2, unit price 2, total 2. Ha! This is nice. This is very nice. And visualizing it like this helps you to see each of the columns. You can very easily see this column. This is column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4. Makes absolute sense, not so? Now, it means that what we need to make dynamic is just below T-body. We can come down inside of T-body right here. Let's break this down a lot further inside of here, and just take note of the fact that inside of here, instead of having TR show 2 times, what we need is to make just one of these TR items to show multiple times, as many times as the repeater item allows it to show. So it means that we need to make one of them repeat, right? That's how repeaters work. You have only one item repeating multiple times. So let's remove the second item. We don't need that. I only added that to show you how these things flow from the first line item to the second line item. This is basically how you code tables inside of HTML, right? I just broke it down like this for you so you can understand, just in case you have no background with HTML whatsoever, okay? Now, how do you ensure that this bit here is dynamic? The simple way to do it is to make use of what we copied previously. Let's just come inside of here. It's called repeater content, just like this. And we're also going to add it just at the end of TR inside of here as repeater content. This will always be the closing, simply repeater content. This is brought in by virtue of the code which we added, okay? So you have repeater content, which is going to close inside of here. And then you have repeater content right here, which is going to open. The opening repeater content has inside of it invoice details hourly. Where do we get invoice details hourly? Come back to the form. You find invoice details hourly. We're just going to come down inside of here and you find it right inside of this repeater. This is hourly right here. So you have invoice details hourly. Now, watch what happens when we come back to edit that template. You see, it says, hey, this is broken. This can't work. Now, I don't want you to panic or try to click on attempt recovery because you're not going to be able to recover this. And why is that? Because we added some macros inside of this, which Gutenberg doesn't recognize. It doesn't understand what those macros mean. So we need to keep it the same way as we kept this right inside of here. Remember, I'm just trying to show you how I came up with all of the code which we find inside of here. Okay, so let's continue to edit this. Instead of attempting recovery, we're just going to convert back to HTML. Let's keep it as HTML. It's fine as HTML. We don't need it to convert it in any way to a visually editable anything. We need it just the way it has always been. Okay, so this is fine. Now, take note of what we did here. We added this macro inside of which we specified repeater content, and then we specified invoice details hourly, which we got from inside of here, right? We also then at the end of it specified repeater content. So what we're saying is this TR can repeat as many times as possible. That is the trick here. That is the trick. The trick is to repeat all of the items here as many times as the repeater items that exist inside of our repeater actually does show up. So if there are 200 repeater items, I need to see 200 rows inside of here. It doesn't really matter. And this is the reason why this part right here has to be dynamic. Okay? So just close it out with repeater content and that's done. Now, the actual items inside of it, like this query 1, hours 1, unit price 1, total 1, we need to also replace that with a macro specifying what each of those repeater items inside of it, for example, description, hours, unit price, total, we need to specify that. So for description, we can copy that, we can come inside of here, and instead of discrete 1, which we have inside of here, we add the percentage symbol twice, and in between those percentage symbol, we paste that inside of there. So we have description. Then we come inside of hours, we do the same thing, we grab that, we come inside of here, and in between that, we put inside of their hours. We repeat the same thing for unit price, which we can copy, come inside of here, instead of unit price 1, add 2 percentage symbols, and inside of that, put the unit price. And finally, inside of total, we're gonna grab total right inside of here, and we want to put 2 percentage symbols and put in between that total. So what we're basically saying is that you need to fetch the table based on this heading. The heading will simply say description, hours, unit price, which will carry the invoice currency. But when you come to the line items inside of that table, I need you to create that as a repeater, to repeat that as many times as possible, and just get these 4 items, the description, the hours, the unit price, and the total. This that you see here is exactly what you find inside of here. Exactly that. Now you understand how to generate this without having to copy and paste the code that I have here. You also understand how to mix and manage this in many different situations, just in case your own situation is just a little bit different. Now, the only difference between this and what we have inside of these two inside of here is that I have it wrapped inside of a conditional block. So I simply added a conditional block right at the top here. Add a conditional block. You can then add that HTML right inside of that. You can then specify that, okay, show this based on the fact that whatever we specified as the work type is equal to, and then you specify whether it's hourly or whether it's service-based. This is exactly what I did. So I can do it, that entire conditional block, and it's going to go right away. And this is how I generated for this, and I generated for this. The only difference is that this now has description, quantity, unit price, total. It also has, instead of the repeater content here, invoice details regular, which is the key for the repeater that carries the invoice details that is service-based, as against that which is hourly, which is above right here. Okay? I hope you understand this complicated tutorial, because this is pretty complicated, and I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that it's complicated, but I really needed to put it out to show you the power, the extent of these tools. Let's come down here and let me show you the last part of this entire invoice. And what we have inside of here is 2 columns. We have one column on the left, which is empty, and we have another column on the right. I simply selected the column on the right and specified that the width should be 50%. And then inside of that, I added a simple table. So the first one is subtotal, which carries invoice currency, which you can find here. And what is invoice currency? It's a simple field that just carries the invoice currency. And after that, it then carries the invoice subtotal actual, which you get from inside of here. You can scroll down, you find invoice subtotal actual. That's it right inside of there. And that is what generates for us the value, the currency, and then the total subtotal, which we get from inside our form. Then we have the deductible total, which of course we would have the invoice currency first, and after which we're going to have the deductible total. You find the deductible total right inside of here. That's a deduction total, which you find right here. And why do I have this in brackets? Just because, I'm a trained accountant, I have a BSc in accounting, and I understand that whenever you deduct stuff inside of any accounting sheet whatsoever, instead of using minus, you can just put it inside of a bracket to specify that, it's a value that will be minused. You don't have to be an accountant to know that, but I had to put it into practice, at least for once. Okay. So here you have the invoice currency, and you also have the deduction total. Very simply, that's what it is. And finally, you have the total right here. And after which you also have the invoice currency, and then you have the invoice total actual, which you have right inside of here. The invoice total actual you find right inside of there. So that's all. That's pretty much it. How did I add this line inside of here? It's not a line. You can see there is a footer section right inside of here. I simply just got this to work by coming to settings and selecting footer section, and inside of that, adding what that footer section is. So let's undo, and we have that right inside of there. So in your footer section, you have the total, and you have the invoice currency and the invoice total actual, which is the figure, the actual figure that is gotten from the calculated value right inside of here. And just like that, you have this invoice, which is very dynamic. The invoice number is continually being updated. It's simply marvelous. Now, there is one last part I need to show you, which is inside of the form. I didn't cover that. I wanted to leave that part for the last. I want to show you just how easily I'm able to make use of that form to just after I submit the form, as I showed at the beginning of this tutorial, it automatically went to the PDF. Let me show you all of the form submit actions inside of my form. Let's come back inside of my form. Let's come to JetForm right here, and let me just take you through all of these form submit actions. They're pretty simple to understand. Just stay with me, okay? Inside of the update options right here, it's simply saying where you have the invoice number, which you have in the back end right here. If you come back to basic invoicing details, let me just close this out. You can find inside of basic invoicing details, the latest invoice number. That's the key. So I copied that, and inside of here, I said, where you have invoice number, I want to add the latest invoice number. Where is invoice number? Invoice number is right here. So I'm saying when you calculate by getting the value from the options page and you add 1 to it, then whatever is the total, I need you to find that and add that to latest invoice number, which is right here in the options page. And that's it. That's basically it. That's all that this form submit action does. It simply increments the value of the invoice number by 1. Click on updates, that's done. The generate PDF add-on is as the name implies. All you need to do is just select the PDF template, which we created inside of here. And once you select that, that's it right there. Inside of the file name, I simply use the unique hash, which is why this has this inside of here. The unique hash is inside, right inside of here. If you click on update, is right below right here. It's just a random string which we generated right inside of here. Then inside of here, you see you have the ability to save the generated PDF file. And that is important. That's important because whatever PDF file is created, when you decide to save it, then you have a dynamic URL which is generated inside of this form. So let me show you. Once you click on update, that form submit action is done. You have insert or update custom content type item, which is just going to create a new invoice system custom content type. I showed you at the beginning of this video. The CCT is just a simple CCT, and we're mapping all of these fields. Invoice number, we're mapping that to invoice number. The currency, we're mapping that to currency. All of this, we're mapping every single one of them. Now, the important part is down here, where you have the generated PDF URL. And that we map to generated PDF, which is just a simple text field inside of the client's invoicing system, which I'm going to show you right now. It's a simple text field that we map the generated PDF, the dynamic generated PDF URL to. This only shows up because of the fact that this form submit action is after the generate PDF form submit action. So you can see that now you have the ability to use that URL and map that to generated PDF, which you can find right here. Let's just edit one of these items. I'm going to show you right here. Generated PDF right inside of there. That's it. That's what it is. It's just going to return a URL inside of here for us. And why is that important? Because in the front end, you can decide if I want to, I can come inside of the front end here, and where I have manage invoices, I can do a dynamic table where I have all of the invoices, and I can also show the status of each invoice and a downloadable link to that invoice. If you're not sure how to use a URL like this and create a downloadable link, I have a video which I'm going to link somewhere up here so you can take a look at how to create a downloadable link from a URL. I created a video sometime in the past about that. You should check that out. Okay, so that's it with having to add a custom content type item. Okay, so we can update that. Then we have a save form record item, which is just going to save the form record and nothing too fancy. It's just going to save this so that when you come inside of JetFormBuilder and come to form records inside of here, you find all of the form records. Just in case for some reason it's not able to create a CCT, or I just use that as a backup option. It's not necessary that you do that. Now inside of connect relation items, all I did here was to say that whatever is this inserted CCT invoice system, which is the new CCT that's being created, I'm saying you need to link that to the client, which is what I have going on right here. This is a connect relation items form submit action that simply uses the relation of relate client to invoices, which I showed to you, to connect the item ID, which is the client, with the inserted CCT invoice system, which is the new CCT that is created by virtue of the previous form submit action, right? So I'm saying just connect both of them together and update the parent for the child. It doesn't matter whether you choose update children for the parent, it's still going to work, okay? Once you're done, you're going to select that you want to append new items because you don't want to overwrite it. You want to continue to add more invoice items to every single client on your WordPress website. When you're done, click on update. Where do I get the parent item ID from? This client, it's from the form field right here, which definitely says client right inside of here. It says client. So inside of here, you also select client and you map that to this CCT, okay? And click on update. And finally, you have redirect to page, which just very simply redirects to a custom URL. And the custom URL is what? If you scroll down, you see you can get the generated PDF URL, which you find inside of here, and you can redirect to that URL. This is the reason why after I submit the form, it very simply redirects to this PDF, which you find inside of here. That's it. That's how all of this was set up. That's how every single one of these things was done. I intended to show you this not because I want to show you how to build an invoicing system. I wanted just to show you the capabilities of JetEngine in combination with JetFormBuilder. And I hope that everything that I explained inside of here was something that helped you at least increase your understanding just a little bit about JetFormBuilder and JetEngine and how you can use them to do dynamic stuff. I hope you have learned quite a lot. And if you've learned something, I really do hope you can find just a minute to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below saying something very nice. It helps me a lot and I appreciate that. And if you want to, you can share this video with others too. All right. Stay dynamic.